All right, so wrapping up the clubs, we're talking about the pragmatists, which would be the STs. So this is any of the types that have logic and sensing or sensing and logic combination together. So LSIs, SLEs, LSEs, and SLIs, right? Whole lot of S and Ls going on, right? So sensing and logic. This is a very they're called pragmatists because they're pragmatic. They're focusing on day-to-day tasks and things that require practical know-how and skill and understanding to do. So it's understanding the rules, the tools, the the mechanisms, the techniques of how you make shit happen, how you get it done, really. Usually these types you can notice them a lot because they tend to be very focused on a certain a job or a hobby or some kind of um, practice or skill that they have interest in. So it could be somebody who's into sports, maybe, and they're into a particular kind of sport and how you do that sport, what's going on in that sport, who's playing, who's winning, who's doing this, whatever, right? Um, it could be some martial art, it could be military things. It could be guys who are interested in guns and firearms and stuff, and they understand the different kinds of firearms, the machinery, the parts, which weapons do what, why do they do it, right? It could be guys into cars, which cars do what, how does it do it, how do you modify it, how do you drive it, how do you deal with it. Could be guys into video games, certain kinds of games. This is how you play. This is how you do this. This is whatever. This is what's going on in the world of this particular game. Um, Guys who are interested in poker, things like that, right? It's still sort of a game. It has what you notice that all these things I brought up, they have rules to them, they have structure to them, they have skill to them, technique. There's a certain know-how on how to do the thing and accomplish it. Um, Building stuff, construction work, electrical work, plumbing, whatever, all these kinds of things, okay, fall within this kind of thinking of like practical skills that are not about people per se. It's really about how you do a certain thing, uh, and the enjoyment of that thing. Okay, they enjoy these kinds of stuff, so they often will maybe enjoy getting together with other like-minded people who enjoy the same kind of thing and talking about the thing, right? Guys who want to talk about a certain sport, they want to go out to watch the game together, talk about who's winning. Guys who want to get together, talk about their cars, work on cars, go shooting, things like that, right? They often like to invest in knowledge and skills that either directly apply to a hobby that they enjoy and are partaking in, like all the stuff I just mentioned, or it's something that is maybe directly applicable to their job. All right, this is what my job is. This is how my job works. This is what goes on in there. Therefore, I need to understand the system, the rules, how things work. Who's important. Um, they may do that not because they necessarily like their job, but they'll do that because it's of practical importance, right? It's my job. I need to know what goes on in there. It's worth my time to pay attention to how to do my job. So they'll have an understanding of that. It's quite different from like the SFs in that you'll notice SFs, the SFs will be much more interested in the people, right? Feelings about things, social stuff. Who's going out with who's doing what, who's taking care of whom, family things, who's the emotional stuff with this family or that, um, all that kind of stuff. Uh, they tend to pay a lot more attention to that and will pay attention to hobbies, job, practical skill set only as needed. But it's not the primary focus. Whereas if you're dealing with the STs here, the pragmatists, it's the other way around. They're focused on the hobbies, the job, and the skills and things needed to do those things, and then focusing more on the people stuff only as needed, right? Only as needed to figure out, okay, who in the family is doing what, what's going on with so and so, and whatever. Okay, these other social skills, and it's usually about it. It's another group that, just like the SFs, they're sensory types. They're about what's actually going on in the world, what's practical and useful, what do I actually need to know and do, and getting things done on a more day-to-day basis, experiencing what's going on. They're not as keen to get into intellectual, abstract, theoretical type of conversations, especially if they don't see a direct use of it. Right. So that doesn't mean they never do it, because they might have a book series or something that they do it kind of for like a hobby. They just so happen to be interested, and it's kind of a more theoretical subject. Um, Maybe there's something that's kind of more intellectual, abstract, but it relates to their job or one of their hobbies that they like. So they'll pay more attention to that abstraction that's going on, that theoretical kind of talk. But outside of that, they're not usually that interested in listening to a whole bunch of theoretical stuff, a bunch of nerdy things that just don't seem to have much practical use to them, right? They might listen for a few minutes, but then they kind of like, okay, it's time to move on to something more useful, whatever. Or let's just go do something instead of talking about it. That kind of attitude. Um, yeah, pretty much. So once again, you get a split. You have the betas and you have deltas. So you have the LSIs and the SLEs, which are your beta quadra types. These types are going to be much more social in a lot of ways, more interested in, um, they're really using a little bit more of the social skill, or more interested in it because they're having a lot more FE stuff going on. So they're more interested in group dynamics. They're much more interested in maybe getting involved in the world to sort of push things, have more of an image, um, maybe more interested in a certain amount of accomplishment, more interested in making a certain splash, in being somebody important, um, and really pushing on that end. They could be a lot more active, a lot more forceful. They're SE users as well. So more forceful, more looking for trying to make their way to the top, making more of an impact, more splash in their environment, really carving out a space for themselves. Acting in a faster, uh, more expedient kind of way to get to things. Now, your delta quadrant types are going to have SI, and they also have FI going on. So they're usually a little bit more mellow, more taking their time to achieve their goals. They're not as interested in being very dramatic and making a splash about stuff. They're not as interested in this, woo, get a load of me. That's a little bit more of the beta quadrant style. They take their time about things. They're being much more methodical about how they're doing stuff, trying to make sure that they do things the right way, a certain kind of way, be more exacting in their work, and operating in a more calm, consistent, maintaining their pace. It's like the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. The beta quadrant types are more of the hare running all over the place, and then you have the tortoise, which is more like the delta quadrant, slow and steady, going after what they want to go after, and can be much more respectful socially, more relaxed, more calm, a lot more calm. But ultimately, they're all STs. They're all still interested in the pragmatic day-to-day stuff. They're all very thinking, rational types that want to understand the rules, the structure of something, how you do it, why it's done the way it's done, and so on. And ultimately, they're usually not as good with people things, because it's just not their focus. Again, that's more of a secondary. They deal with that as needed, right? So how do they look at other types? They're going to deal with researchers, the NTs, the little nerdy types, as a bit of a mixed bag, because sometimes the NTs can be helpful, useful, because they have a lot of knowledge deep knowledge on a particular topic, like they're the brains, they're the walking encyclopedia on something. So if that NT happens to have a lot of good knowledge in a particular thing that the ST is interested in, that the pragmatist is interested in, then that's good, right? The pragmatist will enjoy that. This guy is a bookworm about all this stuff I like. He knows everything there is to know about this sport or these cars or this thing in my job. That could be useful. But they could also look at these NTs like nerds who are spending way too much time discussing, just talking about stuff instead of doing it, theorizing and speculating about crap instead of just doing it, theorizing and speculating and being in their books about things that maybe seem pointless. Like there's no use for that. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to have any real impact with that. You're just kind of wasting time fooling around. So it could be a mix of that. You know? And a bit of a difference in terms of like stop thinking and just do it already, kind of an attitude. So STs with SFs, the socialites, pair up really well. One is focused on the feelings, as I said, with people, and the other one's focused on how you do stuff. So a nice little interplay there. But ultimately, again, one's interested in how you do stuff, and the other's interested in how people are feeling, and so on. So there's definitely an interest difference there that can be a little bit of a problem. It sort of is a little bit of the classic stereotype of like male female kind of relationship, right? Like the classic archetype of the husband and wife that the husband wants to sit around and watch football and talk with the boys about this, and is good at his particular job, but he's kind of rough around the edges with people, can't remember birthdays, doesn't know what's going on with other family members, doesn't want to do the social stuff. Whereas the wife is like more like the SF feely type that wants to socialize and keep track of the family and the birthdays and the kids and all that stuff, but doesn't know what to do with the car. You know, like it's that kind of cliche. Um, of course, that could totally be backwards. That happens as well. You'll have the female is the ST that knows how to get a lot of shit done, and it's the male who's the SF and is better with people. It can go either way. Okay, I'm just kind of giving you the archetype. Right. And then we have the humanitarians. Another odd combination. This is where it's really at most opposite. The pragmatists, again, they're practical, down to earth, what's really going on in the world, what's happening day to day, learning about useful shit that's going on. The NFs, the humanitarians, look like the opposite. They look like they're abstract, up in the clouds, very idealistic about stuff. They look like they don't know how to do anything in a practical way. Everything that the NFs seem to do is very inefficient, ineffective, or just unrealistic. You have certain goals that you'd like people to do and so on, but it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. There's no proof that it works like that. And a lot of the abstract theories and good ideas that the NFs have on social things and workshop stuff and things to help people and are stuff that usually STs have no interest in or don't believe in at all, and therefore they don't have much interest in. They're just going to see it as some kind of hippy dippy snake oil salesman stuff. Like they just don't get it. They don't see any use to that. Um, so usually this is kind of like these two don't can struggle a lot is the point. Not always the case. Again, sometimes you have more like a duality thing going on there where you have some STs that will get along well with some of the NFs, humanitarians, because the humanitarians can bring these concepts of society and people and deeper meaning to life and people that the STs might kind of scratch that and go, oh shit, I didn't think about that. You know what? I mean, that is a good idea. So sometimes it can work and balance each other out, and then sometimes they're kind of repelling each other. You're literally dealing with opposites here. So Yeah, this pretty much covers most of them there. Bottom line, again, pragmatists for a reason. They're into practical day-to-day stuff. That's what they focus on. That's what they get excited about. Their hobbies and job interests and how you do stuff in the real world. That's what they have a lot of energy to talk about and focus on. All the other stuff, they'll do it maybe for a little bit, but it's draining or it's not interesting. It's not stuff that they look into a lot on their own time, right? So that's how you normally spot them. So, okay, that pretty much covers pragmatists. As always, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Are you part of the this group? Um, do you agree? Do you find challenges with dealing with some of the others, the researchers, the humanitarians, the socialites? Let me know what you think.